Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to Contour community meeting. Today is May 25th, 2021. My name is Orlan, and I'll be leading today's meeting. And is it official CNCF community meeting? We should follow the code of conduct of CNCF. With that said, I have the first update from today's agenda. I'm going to be stepping up actively as a community manager for the project, so more free time for Jonas, maybe. And yeah, and with this one, I'll give the stage to everyone to do their updates. Thank you, Steve, for the celebration, and Jonas.
Awesome. Yeah. Congrats again for taking up the role here, Orlin, as the community manager. I just wanted to give you everyone an update. We just finished up a massive website migration from Jekyll to Hugo. Thank you so much, everyone who has been reviewing the PRs and making sure everything looks good. Steve Sloka helped me actually migrate everything in, merge everything in this morning. So we're live now. We still have a few things left over though. There are a few artifacts left over from Jekyll. There are a few things that maybe we can improve on. And we've added a few good first issues for fixing those. So hopefully we can use those. They're not massive errors or anything like that. It's mostly a few broken links, bad formatting, things like that. That would be fantastic for any of the community members to take upon themselves to fix. We're also launching this technical writing working group for Contour in a few weeks here by roughly mid-June. And we can definitely reuse a lot of that, a lot of the things that are in those issues for that too. Yeah, so that's it from me right now. If you find anything that's broken, please open up issues so we can track them that way. Yeah, if they're simple ones, please feel free to do them as good first issues as well.
Yeah, I know I added a few things we had a site check, which would check for like if there was invalid links. And that was based on the Jekyll stuff with Ruby. So I think I found some other ones that we could use possibly, but when I ran it, there was a whole bunch of errors, like hundreds of errors that I didn't want to deal with this morning fixing. So I just took out the thing. So there's a bunch of PRs we have. I know Sanjay added one for the code spell update and stuff. So you might see a bunch of things coming through, but if you're looking for things to do, there are lots of things that related to this. I think you could jump in and help out with it. Yeah, wouldn't be difficult to pick up.
Awesome.
Great.
Cool. I think I'm next. So this one I haven't talked to anyone about. This was just me last night poking around. So I had this idea of, I mentioned before in a previous community meeting how we were looking at moving some of the responsibility that's in the operator today into Contour. And mainly that's who manages the envoys, right? So in Gateway API, the operator was introduced, and the idea was that it'd create an instance of a gateway, which is the new Gateway API project. And that gateway would represent a set of listeners. So in Contour speak, you'd have basically an insecure listener and a secure listener. And then the operator would go ahead and then provision a Contour instance for you as well as envoys. And then part of that would be provisioning load balancers to the envoys. So I was just thinking, and I haven't talked to anyone yet, so I'm blindsiding all the other maintainers, but I had this idea of instead of us managing the service directly for envoy, we could just manage another gateway. And for now, I started playing with the idea of creating this gateway controller, which just basically creates the service behind the scenes of type load balancer. And that could be done until the other projects catch up and actually have real Gateway API implementations, or we could go implement it ourselves. So I guess just to shorten this up, there's two things this will do for us. One is it can take the logic of how to implement these different external controllers and load balancers off of Contour, right? We can keep that out of Contour if we want to. And then two, it puts us in this like gateway mindset. So where we're managing gateways, we're consuming gateways. So we're just, buying back into the same idea of this API. So that link there, I just wrote, it doesn't even do a whole lot yet, but it creates a service type load balancer. But it needs a lot of love. It's very, very generic. So anyway, so that was that idea. So again, we can talk about that at some other point. I decided to throw that out there. The second thing I wanted to bring up was last night on the Gateway API meeting, we had a talk about how we can bind routes. So if you're familiar with HTTP proxy, we can limit what paths and headers certain namespaces can consume, right? So I can have, a root proxy which says, hey, this namespace can own /blog. And if anyone else in the cluster tries to, use that same path prefix, Contour can throw that out. We had a similar discussion last night in Gateway API of how we could apply that to those APIs. So we talked a lot about how Contour does things today, the pros and cons. So if you're all interested in how, Contour does it and you're looking for, a pure open source model to implement the same kind of idea, then this document here linked under that route binding discussion is a good place to put some comments. It also links to other issues as well. So I'm just throwing that out because I know there's some folks that had some needs and things that we don't do today that maybe we could solve it here in Gateway API, or at least put your 2 cents out there so we can understand, what maybe doesn't work today or what you like about it, et cetera, et cetera. So that's all I have. So those 2 things are important. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Steve K? Sanjay?
No updates this week from me.
All right.
Daniel?
Yeah, thanks. So a few discussion topics. The first one is around how we manage Gateway API CRDs. There's a PR there that automates the syncing of the upstream CRDs based on what version of the CRDs we use in our Go modules, all that fun stuff. The purpose for this is to provide a user experience that's consistent with the Getting Started guide, which is a single command that installs the rendered manifest. So that's, I guess, the first discussion topic. Do we want to provide that same experience so a user can say, oh yeah, I want to try out Gateway API, and they go to the Getting Started guide, have a single command that installs a rendered manifest? Or do we want to say, okay, 2 steps, install the upstream version of the manifest and then go ahead and, install the upstream version of the Gateway API CRDs, and then install the manifests to run Contour and Gateway API mode.
Hey, Orlin, can you just open up the link there to the PR as well?
Sure thing.
Perfect, thanks.
Yeah. My initial thought on this was to not take on that effort to duplicate it into our code. But I don't feel super strong with that. I just it'd be an apply from 2 different things and then go from there. But if other maintainers want to do it, that'd be fine with me.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I would say if we're going to do it, we should have a CI check to ensure it's in sync, so that we don't forget to update it. So something that just makes sure that whatever is in the Contour repo matches the upstream version. So that way we're told if we forget to update it.
Yeah, I think that's what my PR comments were on that too, just to request a change to make sure that it's checked if it changes somehow and it doesn't get regenerated, then we can have a CI check that'll make sure. So that check uncommitted file would just need to be updated if we do this.
And that's kind of consistent with, since we generate the YAML for the Contour CRDs, and then we have a CI check to ensure that the YAML is in sync with the API definitions in Go. So I would just add a check for this in that place, and then I think it's fine. Okay. All right, I'll update this PR to add that uncommitted check. Sanjay, thanks for the review and the guidance there. Let's see, next discussion topic. So this And it goes along with the first discussion topic that we just finished. And that's, how do we handle the gateway API example manifest? So if you open up, oh, I didn't link the PR. Do have a PR open for creating a new directory, as you see there, examples gateway with basically all of the manifests needed to be able to run Contour and Gateway API mode. It also, similar to how we handle the examples, Contour generates a rendered manifest. And so, is this the direction we want to take? Currently, if you were to look, I'll post the PR here in 1 second. But if you were to look at the PR and you see the examples gateway directory and all the different manifests, there's considerable overlap with the examples Contour manifest. But I do see that these would diverge over time. And so, if we look at it now, it's like, oh gosh, there's a lot of overlap there. But again, as Gateway API moves forward and we support a lot of different ways to run Contour with Gateway API, there's going to be a lot more divergence there. So just wanted to throw that out for a discussion topic is, is this the right way to handle this? Any thoughts, questions?
Sorry, I had to step away for a second. I know in the past we've had different deployment models. So we used to have like when Contour we first built Contour, we had Envoy in the same pod as Contour. And then XDS talked over localhost to each other because we didn't have terminated endpoints there. We didn't have TLS between the XDS endpoints between Envoy and Contour. So we had it, and then when we built Gimbal, we ended up having this split deployment, which put Envoy as a daemon set and then Contour as a deployment, and then became split. And that was just for performance because the model for Gimbal needed a whole lot of envoys in the fleet. And then I think we've ended up just simplifying and standardizing on the one model we have today of the daemon set with the deployment. So I don't see an issue having this one. I think it'd be good to still keep Gateway separate. I was wondering if we should not deploy HTTP proxy by default. I'm sure folks maybe don't want that in their cluster. That has come up before with some folks of defining what CRDs you'd want to deploy in your cluster or not.
Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion topic too that has been on my mind. And I think if Makai is on the call here is right now in the Contour code, controllers just get started if the CRDs exist, right? And so, Makai and I kind of discussed that. I don't know if that's exactly what, or we'd like to see that evolve to where, those controllers just aren't going to be started, where it could be more selective and there's some way to configure, which controllers to enable, as opposed to just starting them based on whether the CRDs exist or not.
Yeah, for Gateway, there needs to be some sort of way. There's an issue for this. I could go find it, but some way to know who's going to define the listeners for Envoy, right? Because like today we have two different flags we pass to Contour to say, hey, Envoy, listen on these two ports. But in the Gateway API world, Contour should look at the gateway and say, hey, it's defined on 80 and 443 or 80 or whatever those are in the gateway, and use those. So how do those interact with, how do you define, you've got gateway here and I've got to use those ports versus I don't, and I'm using just ingress, or, so I think, we need to have a conversation on that and I think evolve that idea, that or standardize on gateway. I think there's another issue I have for that, where we could just have everything be based on gateway API. So you'd have a gateway and then gateway would reference an ingress object, or a gateway would reference an HTTP proxy object, or it could reference an HTTP route or whatever, so that's another thing. Again, I know I'm off on tangents again, so.
Kind of coming back to this core, can we go back to that PR again? Back to kind of the core discussion point is, right now we have the Contour examples directory, and we've got, can you scroll back up to the top for this? And we've got in the getting started guide, very top, the quick start contour.yaml, right? So we've got that sync script that syncs, the manifests from the examples contour to the rendered manifest. I mean, do we want to provide same experience? I mean, I'm essentially saying, okay, let's duplicate that workflow, that experience for Gateway API. So someone could just do a quick start contour gateway and then spins up, contour and gateway mode with a gateway class and a gateway resource and the contour config, map configured for gateway API mode. And again, the differences are pretty subtle right now, but as we move forward with gateway API support, I think there's going to be a larger divergence between the two different approaches.
Yeah.
I mean, I can jump in and give my opinion. I think it's a good goal to have the kind of one line install for gateway mode. That's something I've always loved about Contour, is how easy it is to get started. So that to me seems like a good goal to have. I think, we might want to look into some tooling that we use to generate the different versions of the manifests and, things like Customize or YTT that will allow us to start with a base set of YAML and then apply customizations to it based on different permutations. And we don't have to expose those things to users if we don't want to. Like, we can just use it internally to generate 2 different sets of YAML and then expose those like you have it here. Because over time, maintaining 2 sets and then, it could turn into 4 sets, like that gets very tedious and error prone if you're doing it all manually. So,
I agree with, having some kind of tool like Customize that can help us, I think we're going to have to, I think the controller runtime has a pretty nice pattern and how it uses Customize to deal with the manifest and so forth. And so, that's definitely, I agree with you 100%. Otherwise, they're going to get out of sync and one's going to be trailing behind the other and so forth. So,
and
I guess if you have any thoughts or ideas on how to, to proceed with any of the tooling, feel free to comment in this PR. Anyways, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, no, I think the admission controller and stuff we'll have to think about, which we'll want to start deploying, I think, as well, right? To help. So there's going to be like the CRDs, the admission controller, and other things that all become part of this whole idea. So I think it all fits into the same idea. Sure.
Okay. So I think then for me, the next step with this PR, because this, having this, providing this experience, I mean, it's obviously it's something that we want to target, but I don't, because we don't support, we don't have full gateway API support directly in Contour, right? I mean, right now it's the hybrid approach of the operator in Contour. I don't see this as being critical that we need to move forward with this ASAP. So that I think gives us some time to figure out the approach for managing these different manifests and so forth using kind or whatever tooling necessary. So I'll spend some time trying to look into an approach and document that in the issue. Cool. I have one other discussion point, and that is setting Envoy Contour Envoy container resource limits. You see that there is a user that opened up an issue, an operator issue. In that operator issue, you'll see that I referenced some Contour documentation that looks to be pretty dated. And so my response to that user was like, okay, I'd like to have this figured out within the project Contour repo. Do we update that document on what are the best resource limits or recommendations for resource limits? I mean, what is our stance with providing resource limits as part of the example manifest or making it configurable?
Yeah, like right now, I don't think we define any on there, which is the source of the issue. I know when this came up before, I did some I stood up some clusters and did some performance testing.
Yeah, that's the document that I referenced. I saw that you were behind that one.
Yeah, but so much of it depends on like how many objects you have and how many services you have and how much they churn and change, which applies to that. So it's one of those. It's like promising, internet bandwidth speed at home from your internet provider. It's hard to come up with a good number because so many things come into play. So I think we can come up with generic numbers probably, if that makes sense. And then I guess I worry about defining too small of a number, and then folks have issues. But then if it's too big, then it's consuming more than it really needs. So I guess we could redo that test I did before, and just, I guess my thought was just publish the numbers that we kind of see, and then folks can decide from there. I don't know.
Well, the problem that we have is, so I guess we could do, one thing we could do, we can ignore the resource limit fields from the operator standpoint when it's doing its comparison. It's a quality comparison, right? And so that would basically open the gate to go ahead and say, okay, if you want to set your resource limits, go ahead and do it on your own. And the operator will not reset those limits back to nothing, right? The other option is we actually expose the ability to manage those resource limits.
Yeah, I think the operator could expose them. I think that makes sense, since it's responsible for creating those resources. I think it makes sense to allow it to be configured there. But I guess, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess we could do the test again and just pick some numbers if we want, and go from there. Or put on the user. I guess I don't know. I know I'm back to rambling again.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah.
Hey, Makai, I see you're on the call, and I looked at some of like the, like the cluster ingress operator, OpenShift router, how those resource limits are managed, and I couldn't really like come to a definitive understanding of like the calculation for coming up with those resource limits. Just wanted to see if you had maybe any more background there that I'm not aware of, or if you have any thoughts on if or how to manage resource limits from an operator standpoint.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact formula, but we do have some scheme where run CI on a full cluster and see what the maximum memory usage is and compute a request from that. I'll have to look up what exactly we're doing.
All right, yeah, if you find any info, feel free to pass it along to me or put it in the issue, and we can start thinking about how we solve this, or if we solve it.
Actually, I just realized we set requests. We don't set limits. We specifically avoid setting limits because we want the operating system to handle out of memory conditions or other resource issues.
All right.
Okay. Anyone else? Any topics to bring up? If that's all, I think we can close for today. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, and see you next time.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Take care.
everyone. Bye.